Hello and welcome to this week's video. Today I'm going to be doing a book review about, it's quite an old book actually, but mind-blowing in a sense. I read it and I was just wow. So we're going to be talking about Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. The subtitle is An Amazing Way to Deal with Change in Your Work and Life. As I said, it's an old book. I have worked with people before who have referred to it and said, oh, you know, who moved my cheese and jokes and stuff. And I'd never read it until recently. So I read it a couple of weeks ago, I think. And it's such a simple story. It's a really short little story. It's not even 100 pages long, and it has illustrations and captions and stuff on the pages as well. So it's not a full 100 pages of text. I think I read it well, I certainly read it in one sitting. It is a simple, short story, but with a really powerful message, which I think in the current situation that we're in 2020, with coronavirus, all the uncertainties around the economy and jobs, and everything is changing. Literally nothing in our lives is the same as it was this time last year. I thought looking at a book that deals with change would be really interesting, hopefully, for most people. It does basically talk you through how to deal with change whilst using some characters in a story, and what it does is it looks at the way in which different people deal with change differently. So I'm not going to give the story away because I want you to read the book, because the book's going to do it so much more justice than I can, and obviously if I tell you, you're not going to go and read the book, so go and read the book. But basically the story focuses on 4 characters. 2 of these characters are always on the lookout for change and never become complacent with the status quo. And then you have another 2 characters who become complacent. They adapt to the norm, to the status quo, and they don't ever consider the possibility that things might change. There are warning signs in the story that the first 2 characters respond to. The second 2 characters don't see these warning signs, and they don't take them into account in their daily lives, and then all of a sudden change happens and the cheese has been moved. To begin with, the reaction of these second 2 characters is that if they carry on the way that they always have done, then the change will revert back to normal. Now, this is a perfect scenario for 2020, because if you think how we were, say, 2 years ago in 2018, that pretty much was the same for most people through 2019, and then all of a sudden we're now in this really bizarre situation where life is probably never going to go back to the way that it was. It might go back to it to some degree, but it's never going to be exactly the same. So in this story, your characters would basically be sitting there thinking, okay, I'm just going to wait another couple of weeks and then things will go back to normal. I'll be able to go to the pub, I'll be able to go to the supermarket, I won't need to wear my mask when I go out on the bus. So these 2 characters don't adapt or think that they need to adapt to the changing situation. To begin with, they sit and they wait because they assume that things are going to go back to the way that they were. Gradually, one of the characters starts to understand that actually maybe things aren't going to go back to the way that they were, and that maybe he needs to go out and he needs to adapt to the situation as it currently is, not expecting it to go back to the way that it was. I'm not going to tell you what happens to the character that didn't change in this story, but yes, it's brilliant. I love it. It's a really short book, it's a really old book, but I think it is as valid today, if not more so, than it has been in recent years. If we take the story very simply and look at perhaps you build a company where you make flowery dresses, and your company is successful for 10 years or so making flowery dresses. Everybody just wears flowery dresses, there are no other types of dresses in the world, so you're making a lot of money, you're very successful because of your flowery dress business. After 10 years, people start to wear stripy dresses. So sales in your shop start to go down, because although there are still some people that like the old traditional flowery dresses, there are now people that are wearing stripy dresses as well, and there are some people that are only wearing stripy dresses. At this point, you need to evaluate the situation. You can either change with the times, or you can stay as they are. Now, sometimes changing isn't necessarily the way to go. You could end up becoming the only supplier of flowery dresses, and all those people that miss the flowery dresses will still come to you and you will still have a market, but it's going to be a very niche market. If you want to be mainstream like you were previously, you might have to adapt to doing stripy dresses, or you could do both and you could sell to both markets. But in all situations, you're going to have to look at what the situation was, what the change is, and how you can adapt to deal with that change. And if you read this book, it will illustrate it perfectly to you how you can either succeed if you change, or how potentially not changing could be a big disaster. Basically, what this book tells you is to anticipate change, accept it, and adapt to it, and you will go far in life. And it doesn't just apply to work life either, it applies to anything in your life, so I would highly recommend. I will put the details of the book in the comments below, but if you're looking for any type of book about change management, or you want a really simple analogy for dealing with change, then I would definitely recommend this book.